All right, guys, welcome to Taking the Time. This is our special Sunday episode with Mr. Stratton himself, Kyle Schut. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, shit, however you want to.
All right.
I trust me, Kyle. You could see my last name on there, and
Yeah, that's
Coach.
and it's Coach though. But I've had, especially being from with military background, I've gotten everything from Koch and everything that rhymes with Koch.
I think it's quite funny. My mother's maiden name was Bull, and she married Schut, so Bull.
That's fantastic. At least she didn't hyphenate, maybe, So.
Yeah.
so
thanks for having me. Yeah.
Oh no, it's a pleasure
to have you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're high on our short list. Trust me. So before we get into talking about what's going on with Stratton and the history of it and all that, I want to do a quick wrist check.
Oh. Luckily, I've got one on.
We'll let the guest go first. Oh, yeah.
I'm wearing the
the yacht racer. Is that the
40 millimeter? Yeah, that's the 40. I'll personally say the 43 is probably maybe a bit better for my wrist size, but I'm at 7.1, 7.2, but it doesn't stop me from wearing it. Still enjoy it.
Yeah. But we both, I'm a 7.25 wrist and Bryan's an 8-inch wrist, and we both went with the 43. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the 43, Brad?
Yeah.
I thought you got the 40. Oh, wow. Fantastic.
No.
I guess I'll go.
The Raven Solitude's the only 40 I think I have.
Yeah, great watch, Raven.
Just barely big enough. So, what do you got, Bryan?
Sangamon Mother Road. Still doing how to what's it like living with it, and I'm happy to report back that it's great. At 42 millimeter, it actually wears larger, has a really nice wrist presence, and I'm very pleased with that. So
it's a brand that I recently came across. I think Sangamon.
Yeah.
They have a nice story. They're really working towards
Americana.
Yeah, and not only that, but actually bringing watches and watchmaking back to the U.S. and Illinois in particular, and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. Some of the plans they have going forward. It's really. The plans going forward are all about the past, really. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
that kind of ties into to Stratton in a way. I feel like every watch has a little piece of history or some retro vibe to it that you're kind of and it's not the run of the mill. Like everybody can make a sub homage, but you're digging into some very unique chronographs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I sort of sometimes get the question of like how do I design a watch, and I've got this like folder on my iPhone where wherever I see a watch I screenshot it, and I've also got my own personal collection of sort of 70s chronos, and sort of that area in terms of design has always just really spoken to me. I think aesthetically it's just like one of the most exciting periods in terms of color and design. People thought just went crazy almost in comparison to the decade previously in the 60s. Everything was like classic and sort of toned and really toned down, etc. 70s just really blew up in terms of color. So I think one can call my watches homage to the era. It's not a if we take one of my designs, I mean, you can see a few watches. If you know all the watches, you can see a few watches that made a specific design. I wouldn't call any one of my watches a specific homage to a very specific watch. But I think because the general public maybe don't always see the watches that maybe I've seen or so what other people have seen, that they might only think of one watch. It's like, it's funny if we look at my synchro with the sub dials that are not round, you'll find that I often get that's a Monaco, but it's not even rectangular. But then again, if you've got the Speciale, which has got like a TV style rectangle dial, some people will say, "Oh, that's a Monaco," It's but it's like it pulls designs from everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so. I
And
mean,
the
no
Ligera standard pulls from Monaco colors too, and of course the Gulf Racing colors, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's no secret that I'm not a fan of homage watches. so that was one of the key things. Like I've probably looked at least everything you've made over the last year or two, and I'm like, I see similarities, but not replication. And that's
exactly.
like, it's a classy way to do a homage for sure. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. So I think for me, like styling, having a cohesive styling was important. So I think one of the things when I first started out, you'll notice my very first watch, the Vintage Driver Chrono, had the full Stratton name on the logo as a logo. And my first watch, I couldn't be as creative as I would have wanted to. Maybe in terms of design, it was pretty toned down compared to what I did after that. But I think one of the main things why I went down to just the S logo is I wanted the design language itself to speak for itself, right?
Yeah.
For someone to maybe see a watch and know already what it is. If they know me, they know Stratton, they'll see a Stratton watch, they'll know it just by looking at the styling and not looking at the logo.
Right.
And I noticed already, like by the third or fourth launch, that was already starting to happen, and that was good for me. I was happy about that.
It's there. I feel like there's not a whole lot of micros that have a brand recognition, such as Straton, Grupo Gamma, and Zelos, and that's one of the keys. And I think out of the three of those, you're the youngest brand because they've been around I think they've both been around for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of ahead of that curve. And I know there's other micros that are very well known, not only in the micro community but outside of it. So it is interesting to kind of learn about that perspective. So when you initially started Stratton, was your vision always to create those 70 inspired chronographs, or
yeah?
So
that's why I think right up until I launched the Turo, which was end of 2019, every launch up until that was a chronograph. And I think it was six. My first 6 watches were all chronographs, and I just think one can be so creative with a chronograph layout design in comparison to a standard 3-hander. But that just spoke to me that's what I loved. So every watch I designed, I designed it because I liked it. And it's sometimes difficult, when you do put out a design there and you ask for feedback, it can be double-edged sword where but I really appreciated that process as well. I know I did it for my first design, and I've asked for feedback on later designs. On my first one, it also really helped me. I can remember because there were some design elements like the logo, etc., that I worked on after I posted the initial renders. That's a community design can help in some cases, and in some you just need to say you just can't please everyone, right? And that's what I always say. If a guy says, "Oh, can you change that with that? And why did you do this?" And I said, my feedback after the design is finished, I say, look, I designed it because I like it, and hopefully other people out there like it. I can't please everyone.
Right.
Although I'm known for doing, and my manufacturer maybe doesn't appreciate this as much as my customers do, but for the amount of variations I do in terms of size, and movement choice, and that I've basically almost every launch has always had 2 case sizes, 2 movement choices. I've just tried to not separate myself, but I dislike getting the feedback of when you post a watch or a design and someone says, I wish you made it in a 44, or I wish you made it in a 40 millimeter. I can't stand those comments, because that's a customer right there that you're losing.
Right.
So that's why I, for instance, like the yacht racer as well. I made it in a 43 and I made it in a 40 millimeter. And I think, but of course, I understand it can also be, with the amount of minimum order quantities us brands need to having 2 case sizes is not easy to manage, right? In terms of cost and overheads, etc. Yeah.
I'm going to be completely frank. When I saw the ST19 movement, I'm like, And there's been at least 2 other watches before the yacht racer that I'm like, oh, I love that watch, but the movement. And then I'm like, well, let's look at the track record of Stratton, and let's consider that. And then I started to research, and okay, it's based off of the Venus. I forgot the caliber, but it's based off an old Swiss movement. And it's like, he wouldn't be using this if it wasn't a quality movement. So.
Sure. Look, I think for instance, also with the yacht racer launch, I'm also doing the 2894 /2 ETA Swiss made version. But then of course the price is 3 times as much.
Yeah.
Because this is the first watch I'm doing where it's also Swiss made certified. So it's also assembled in Switzerland. And but I think the ST19, from my inside knowledge that I have accumulated over the years, I know that Seagull went through a sort of a rough stage in terms of QC, and more recently things seem to have gotten better. I think what's key with the ST19 movements, the Seagulls, I think it's good when you get them in to have them looked through. And I'm doing it look in a quantity that's manageable, right? I've also before I contemplated a long time before testing out this movement, using it in one of my watches, and I've also consulted with other brands that have used it, right? And have used it successfully, like Mercer. Mercer used it on Scott, the owner. He used it on quite a few of his watches, and I think it's a good movement for the price and the performance. And I think I wanted the Swan's neck regulator on it, so just giving that added usability for any watchmaker or someone who wants to regulate it more easily. So I think it worked out. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the performance so far of this.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't heard anything bad. It was just that stigma I had in my own head.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, it's time to get past that, because the ETA movement's just a little bit out of reach for me. So it's like, I love this watch. It's beautiful design. I love the color combinations. So it's like, it's time to buy the design and not the movement. Yeah.
Well, I think some of the stigma that came with the Seagull, the ST19 movement, was after, I think it was after the patent expired, and then everybody just kind of went wild making it. So you had this big gap in quality control, and it was kind of a gamble on whether you got a high quality one or however it was. And I think that by refining searches and things like that, then that's how you're going to find the best. The Swan's Neck regulator, that speaks to me because Brad as well. I'm sitting with watch tools and watches torn apart in front of me right now. I'm a total nerd, and I mean, literally, I have stuff everywhere in here, so it's a mess. But it was funny because my wife actually ordered the yacht racer for me for my birthday, which is on the 5th of September. And and she said, actually, I was surprised that you liked that. And I said, really? Why? She goes, well, because of some of the colors, that I said. And then I thought about it, that she didn't know me back when I was doing competitive sailing. And so I explained to her that on the older sailing watches that you basically, a sailboat is always moving. And so you need to be able to, look at your risks as you pass the starting line, backwards, when to tack and come about and turn around. So hopefully you cross that starting line right after the horn goes off, and boom, off you go. And I said, you need to be able to not just see the time, but it's going to be in different colors too.
Yeah.
And so coming up with the sailing background, that hit me immediately. I was like, I love it. And, and of course, Brad will tell I almost always wear a chronograph. So that's my thing.
Cool. So happy to have you in the Stratton family, hopefully soon. I'll be shipping those out most likely in the next, having them shipped out, planned before the 10th of September. They'll be sent out. So, yeah.
My first experience with Stratton was actually John Camigno. Do you know him? Yeah. I thought you guys had talked. I met up with him. He actually teaches courses around the nation. And I went to one of them. We had lunch, and I got to see some of the Strattons. And I was the weight of it. It just feels like a high quality watch. I just felt that watch. I'm like, man, just sometimes you just put a watch in your hand and it's quality. And that was my first impression with Stratton. I'm like, wow, this is pretty incredible. Maybe we should shift gears. I've been seeing what looks like a dive watch on the feeds. Is that correct?
That might be the sister brand I'm launching.
Oh, okay.
I think. Yeah. And I sometimes get the question, why am I doing this? Stratton is here to stay. It's my baby. It's going nowhere. I love what I do. I love Stratton. I'll keep on designing watches for Stratton and keep it growing. Up until this day, Stratton has been sort of a one-man show, other than the manufacturer I have. So it's only me. So whenever somebody writes, etc., it's if they write on the online chat on the website or write an email, it's always me. So Stratton is very niche. Also in terms of styling, it's a niche market, and I think I've got a bit more to give in terms. I just like designing, so it's also a business decision as well. Me launching a second brand, because I think I'm moving into a space. The dive watch space is the largest. I mean, we see the most successful micro brands are mostly coming from that space, and it's for good reason. Because when you see watch shot collections either in forums or in Facebook, you'll see the collection is 75% dive watches, or some are almost all dive watches. So from a business perspective, I think if this takes off in a way that I think it could, it could help me to grow Stratton along, as well with it. and yeah, the brand's called Signum and Signum Watch Co. And the first watch is called the Cuda, which is it's an exotic dive watch, or not an exotic in terms of the materials, the materials of the dial. So it has meteorite dials, it has an abalone dial, a mother of pearl dial, and a full lume dial.
Yeah.
And so it's basically, yeah, specced out with ceramic bezel, 200 meters water resistant, date, no date. So I'm using NH35 for date and NH38 no date. So no ghost date position, which some people like not to have. I'm sort of stuck somewhere in between. It doesn't really bother me, a ghost date position, but I know for more of the purists, they want to have, if it's a no date watch, it should have a no date movement. So I've tried to cover all the bases there. And yeah, full custom end link, milled clasp, etc. And the watch starts from $249 for the mother of pearl dial versions. It's $299 for the abalone and full lume versions, and $349 for the natural meteorite and also the burnt meteorite version, which is like a heat treated meteorite dial, which gives off like blues and purples. And so $349, I think I've priced it very aggressively, and for good reason. I wouldn't advise maybe a person new to the industry and to the business to price in this aggressively, because inexperience could lead one to, going out of business. But I think, what I bring to the table, I'm producing 600 pieces, so I'm doing two case sizes, 40 millimeter and 44 millimeter. And the lug to lugs are really wearable. So the 40 millimeter has a 44 millimeter lug to lug, and the 44 millimeter has a 48 millimeter lug to lug. Wow. So for a 44 millimeter watch, that can probably fit a guy or person who normally wears a 42 millimeter watch, because 48 millimeter lug to lug is about a 42 millimeter normal wrist size watch.
My 42 millimeter Raider is 46 lug to lug. So
okay, that's pretty.
Yeah, wow, you're
yeah.
Yeah, right in there.
Yeah,
and that one fits me well. So with an 8-inch wrist, so.
So yeah, I just think diversifying a bit. I want to come to into the dive watch space. I think I'm not doing a typical pre-order. I'm not doing Kickstarter. I'm risking producing 300 of the 40 millimeters and 300 of the 44 millimeters. So basically, this full production assembly is already underway. I'm hopefully at the end of next week, I should have the first watches to be able to photograph, and then launching on the 15th of September.
Excellent.
So,
that's fantastic.
Guys, if you haven't seen the dials on these watches, wow. The heat treated meteorite, everybody knows I love meteorite dials. I saw that and I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. It's just incredible. So
yeah, it's a nice finish.
The ones that stood out to me are actually, and Brad, you're going to say, of course, this Bryan would say this, the mother of pearl and the abalone dial, are just really, really cool to me. And I don't know, Kyle, do you dive at all, or?
I don't personally dive, but I come originally from South Africa, so I spent a lot of the time in sea surfing, etc. So, yeah, sea was always part of my life growing up.
Do you still have both legs? Because there's a lot of sharks down there.
I do.
Yeah, that's I've wanted to visit there. It's like there's a lot of stuff that'll kill me. Okay,
It could be worse. It could be
Yes.
Yeah, I think Mother of Pearl and Abalone are really it's a love-hate relationship with a lot of people. Some find it a bit kitsch, a bit cheap, while other people sort of like it. I enjoy it, so I think it'll also speak as well to the ladies out there. I think
Yeah.
bringing in a 40 millimeter size. I know my mom and a few of her and my friends' moms have already said they wanting one, especially the abalone. Yeah, yeah,
And that's so interesting because my wife is very petite. I don't know what her wrist size is, but a 38 millimeter watch is like from side to side on her wrist.
yeah.
And we were out shopping and we went looking at Panerais, and she fell in love with the Duo, the 38 millimeter Duo, and she puts it on. And I'm like, I'm waiting for her to say it's too big, and she's like, do you think it's too big? And I'm like, it doesn't matter what I think. Does it feel too big? Is it too heavy? And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh no. Like, so, yeah, I mean, like, I would love to see more women getting into watches because 38 and 40 millimeters is not that big. It's
Yeah,
very
it's not,
wearable.
yeah.
And I can see where you're targeting either sex on that dial because it's kind of like an attention getter in a lot of ways, but in a classy way. And it's elegant. It's guys, if you haven't seen it, go over to signumwatches.com. Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And check that out. It's on the social media feeds. It's in the groups too. I've seen, because at first I thought that was a Stratton, and I'm like, is he making a Stratton diver like that? So I understand why you separate it too. But when I first saw that, I'm like, huh.
Yeah, I think why I separate it just doesn't fit in the sort of the brand ethos of Stratton, right? A typical dive watch just doesn't fit in there. And I think from the style direction that I would go with Signum is, I wouldn't say I maybe want to carve out maybe a little niche for me there in terms of, my next one will, if the Signum Cuda does well, I'll do a bronze version of it next, and maybe include some other special dials that'll come through. So I think the space is big enough for another dive watch. Sometimes people always complain. Some people complain, oh yeah, we don't need another dive watch or something, or why another homage or something like that. But from a business perspective, I understand why these things happen, right? Because there's only one reason why we keep seeing them pop up, is because people must be buying them. And that's, I think the homage market does so well because people buy them. Yeah. So if it's supply and demand, if there's a demand, there's going to be people that are going to make them. So I think up until now I've sort of been in my little bubble of Stratton and 70s chronos and racing themed sort of styling and that. And I think now creating Signum and being able to now diversify a little bit, it's going to broaden my horizons. I think looking forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the Abalone dial right now, and I'm a big man. I'm over 300 pounds. So it's 2 meters, 160 kilos, big guy. And I ride motorcycles and I have tattoos, everything. And I will tell you that I like all of them, but yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now and it's just like, not only could I wear this out to dinner with my wife, or I could wear it on my motorcycle or driving my car, or if I'm, racing one weekend, but I can also wear it diving the next day and not have to worry about it. Like, oh, I hope it, doesn't fill up with water or something. So, I mean, it's really, really great looking to me. I love the way the colors and everything is that natural from the abalone, and it's to me I don't think it's cheap at all. It's very to me it's kind of a classy choice, and it's one of it's it's from nature, so you really that makes sense. It's from a sea creature in a diver. That to me makes perfect sense. So I think you're going to be extremely successful with that.
You see, I hope so.
We're going to be wrapping the show up here shortly, but before we get to final thoughts and all that, I just want to go. I mean, I've looked through the range and I pulled the website up again. I got one question, and then I'm going to kind of go over the range. But have you ever made a bronze watch? I know you mentioned about the diver, but I don't think I've ever seen a Stratton that was bronze.
No,
No.
I haven't done one to date. But let's see.
Is there a reason? Like, do you personally like bronze, or?
To be honest, I've never had a bronze watch. Never. I've held them, but I think what's maybe been holding me back from a Straton bronze watch is maybe the bronze's specific color. And in terms of color, I would maybe need to watch what colors I use on a dial.
Yeah.
For that to mix well, right? And my colors are quite vibrant, quite bright.
Yeah.
And I worried that maybe I couldn't be as adventurous with the coloring if I have a bronze case. I think, yeah.
I'm with you. I personally, I'm not a big fan. I've had 3 or 4 different bronze watches, and it seems that I always just end up getting rhythm pretty quickly. I have one in my collection now, which is a Grupo Gamma, and then I have one that's a Mitchell that it's a prototype, so I'm gonna keep it. But and that makes sense because I'm thinking what a bronze looks like with a splash of red, or like you can do like a green, but it has to be like a certain tone, and it is kind of very muted, and that's just what I'm picturing in my head as to what would work and what not. But
you don't know where my mind went with that. Actually, it's in the TV style case, the kind of squarish case.
Yeah.
And with that, I think it was a previous model. You did almost that sunburst gold. And so it's like things that harken back to the 70s and that era in bronze, even with some patina on the bronze, I still think that's it's going to kind of look gold on gold originally, but then if you let it, if you can either keep it shiny, I mean, and of course this is out of my brain, which is a dangerous place to be in. So, it's that was the first thing that popped into my mind because I remember you had a sunburst, kind of a yellow goldish color. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
In fact,
especially.
I think that yellow I've used on the Leggera. It was a limited edition, the Bullhead and the Standard. Otherwise it might be the competition driver, which I'm launching later this year, which is sort of not TV dial, but it's similar to a TV dial.
Right.
And that's got like a mustard yellow.
Oh, I'm gonna love that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's really, to me, that's.
I think
really
if you're on the website and you're on your phone, it would be not in watches for sale, but it would be if you click on the main menu and you get the drop down, it should be the competition driver. That's one of the newer watches coming later this year. I actually just made a decision this week. I was, the samples were supposed to be finished this past week. But after my manufacturer and myself, we looked at the dials, not the dials, the case. It's got a very slim profile for a chronograph, probably one of my more slimmer profiles, just over 12 millimeters, but the profile was not showing that size very well. It looked much bigger. So we literally did all the cases, moldings, made the cases, etc. And just because it didn't speak to me aesthetically, we scrapped it and redesigned the case to give more slimmer contours on the side and just to make the profile slimmer. And we doing new cases.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So
are you talking about this one? The competition?
Yeah, exactly.
Driver?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Looks really good. Yeah. And
that's it.
That is fantastic. I know it's not professional. Just hold my phone up to the thing, but sometimes it's the fastest way to do it, and everybody's on the same page, and it gives everybody else kind of a visual reference as well. So as to
sometimes we need to take decisions, even if it means delaying a project. I'm sort of, I think also the people who have supported me in the past know that I won't just deliver a watch just to get it out the door, right? I'm not immune to problems. Problems are going to happen, but as long as I take care to make sure that they're minimized to the extent they are, then people are going to appreciate and willing to wait a little bit longer to get a watch. I'd rather have it right than just send something out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean that's what sold me on the yacht racer is maybe I didn't love that movement, but your reputation supersedes my belief of that movement, which is somewhat baseless. So I mean, if I can rationalize that, then, but I mean that's where it's like, okay, if I'm going to buy one of these movements, it's going to be a Straton because I know that you put out a quality product and you're not just trying to sell something. So yeah,
sure.
I mean,
look, I treat each of my customers like gold. Without them, it I wouldn't exist. So there I see the competition driver. So the one that's on the screen now is actually the first completed prototype. So this is after seeing this, the case on the side. If you look at the side profile, it's sort of flat, just a flat slab. And if you look at it from the side, it looks a lot bigger than what it should be. So I'm slimming down that profile more by going in from the bottom. So I think it'll look much nicer once it's
look at these dial colors though. Oh my God, that green is that British racing green?
It's like I haven't pulled it specifically the color code, but it's similar. But the sort of mustard yellow, that one there, that sort of speaks to maybe Alpha GDVs in the 70s that came in that color. Also Porsche 911s, the old 2.7s or 2.2Ss. They came out with this sort of color. So that's
it's a good looking watch for sure.
Oh, Brad, he's talking about cars.
Yeah, I know.
Look out. Yeah, Brad's talking about Porsches. Brad's a VW owner. I've owned a lot of VWs and all kinds of cars. I'm a huge car guy. And I mean, but back away from that, I want to say that one of the things I noticed was Stratton, the continuity that between a lot of the watches, like the Ligera, it is a rounder case, but then the subdial are more of the kind of have the TV subdial shape around them, so that you get little pieces.
Or the surfboard on the Synchro. Yeah, I mean it's just super cool.
It's little details.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. We're at 40 minutes, and we tried to keep this to 30 minutes. I knew there was no way we're gonna do that with the two of us geeking out on Stratton. So get over to StrattonWC.com, check out their watches, buy one. I mean, there's everything from the daily driver, which I think is the entry level piece, to around about $250, $300 on up to a higher end Swiss movements. Kyle has literally covered the gambit on any chronograph you want, so that's where we need to go for our chronos.
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to Kyle for a final thought, and then we'll close it down.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak and meet you guys. And I look forward to delivering your watches. Hopefully you like them.
Oh yeah.
And thanks a lot for the support, and everyone out there. Really appreciate it. You know, supporting small businesses out there, especially in today's time, it's important. I think some larger corporations are not struggling, but you know, us smaller businesses need help and support. So yeah, it's good to have such an involved community behind us, and yeah, it's good. I'm really enjoying the microbrand scene. It's a good place to be.
That's fantastic that you say that, because you said you enjoy it, and by so many people have said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
If you stop enjoying it, just quit. And
yeah.
It sounds like I can tell that you're very passionate and excited, and you really put that effort into your designs. And I think it's superb. I'm very much looking forward to my yacht racer when that comes. Brad is also, with a smile on his face, he's very much looking forward to it. And
cool.
Yeah, it's just going to be. This may be my first Stratton I'm getting, but it's not going to be my last. So,
thanks a lot, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Cool.
And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.